Not every artist can maintain momentum after a strong debut. They failed to live up to expectations on their second album. That phenomenon is known as the sophomore slump. In this video, we'll look at 8 overhyped sophomore albums that flopped. Echo by Leona Lewis. Leona Lewis was the X Factor UK's biggest success story, breaking global records with her debut album Spirits in 2007, which included the mega hit Bleeding Love, topping the Billboard Hot 100 for 4 weeks. With Simon Cowell's backing, her sophomore album Echo was positioned to become even bigger. The album featured grand ballads and big-budget production from Ryan Tedder, Max Martin, and Justin Timberlake. However, despite high expectations, Echo failed to capture the same magic as Spirit, both critically and commercially. One of the biggest issues with the album was its lack of a defining hit. The lead single Happy was an emotional ballad in the vein of Bleeding Love, but it didn't connect in the same way. While the song performed decently in the UK, peaking at number 2, it flopped in the US, failing to crack the Hot 100's top 30. Other singles like I Got You also struggled to gain traction. The commercial disappointment of Echo had lasting consequences for Leona's career. In the UK, the album debuted on number 1, but sales were significantly lower than Spirit. In the US, it peaked on number 13, selling 69,000 units in its first week, a big decline from her debut, which sold more than 200,000 copies in its first week. Without a major crossover hit, Leona's presence in the American market faded. Despite being a beautifully sung album, Echo is often remembered as the moment Leona Lewis's superstar trajectory stalled. The Pains of Growing by Alessia Cara. Alessia Cara's debut album Know It All in 2015 made her a rising star, with hits like Here and Scars to You're Beautiful. She was celebrated for her introspective songwriting and relatable persona, earning comparisons to early Lorde, and even winning a Grammy for Best New Artist in 2018. Naturally, her sophomore album The Pains of Growing was expected to cement her status as a pop powerhouse. Unfortunately, that did not happen. The album saw Alessia maturing, but it lacked the catchy and radio-friendly singles that made her debut a success. The lead single Growing Pains failed to gain traction on the charts, peaking at a disappointing number 65 on the Billboard Hot 100. Other singles like Trust My Lonely and Out of Love barely made an impact. They just didn't connect with her fans. Without a strong hit to carry the project, The Pains of Growing struggled commercially. It debuted on number 71 on the Billboard 200, a huge drop from the top 10 peak of Know It All. The lack of a promotional push from her label and an overall shift in pop music at the time made it even harder for the album to gain momentum. Joyride by Tinashe. Tinashe's debut album Aquarius in 2014 built up her buzz as R&B's next big thing. Two On became her first big hit, peaking on number 24 on the Billboard Hot 100. It was clear that she had the potential to become a huge star, and there was a lot of hype for her follow-up album. However, Joyride became a disappointment. Originally intended for release in 2015, it got delayed a lot of times because of conflicts with her label RCA. By the time the album finally dropped in 2018, the momentum behind her name had faded. The album itself felt disjointed. Singles like No Drama and Faded didn't click with mainstream audiences, and the title track, originally meant for Rihanna, failed to make an impact. Fans who had been waiting years for Joyride were given a project that didn't live up to expectations. Tinashe later said that she felt creatively stifled by the process, saying that the album didn't fully represent her vision. Commercially, the album was a disaster, debuting on number 58 on the Billboard 200 and quickly disappearing from the charts. It became one of the biggest sophomore slumps, effectively killing her momentum. However, it did push her to go independent, where she has since regained creative control and revived her career. The flop was a blessing in disguise. Harmonium by Vanessa Carlton. Vanessa Carlton became an instant star with her debut album Be Not Nobody in 2002, thanks to the massive success of 1,000 Miles. The song was everywhere, from radio to movie soundtracks, and has stood the test of time, as it is now a certified classic. With that level of fame, expectations for her second album Harmonium were very high. Instead of playing it safe with another radio-friendly piano pop anthem, she took a more artistic route. The result was a darker, more introspective album that was sonically more interesting, but lacked the immediate hooks of her debut. Despite strong critical reviews, Harmonium struggled commercially. The lead single White Houses was reportedly blacklisted by MTV and some radio stations because it was too sexual. Without major radio support, the album failed to take off, peaking on number 33 3 on the Billboard 200 and quickly disappearing from the charts. In contrast, Be Not Nobody had gone platinum, while Harmonium barely made a dent. The album's underperformance led to Vanessa parting ways with her label, forcing her to become independent for the rest of her career. In hindsight, Harmonium was an underrated album, but at the time, it was a major commercial disappointment that derailed her mainstream career. Warrior by Kesha. After the overwhelming success of Animal and its companion Cannibal, which spawned huge hits like TikTok, We Are Who We Are, and Blow, Kesha seemed unstoppable. Her party girl persona and electropop anthems dominated the charts, making her one of the biggest pop stars of the early 2010s. However, when it came time to release her second full-length studio album Warrior, things didn't go as planned. The album's lead single Die Young started strong, peaking at number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100, but it was pulled from radio playlists following the Sandy Hook school shooting in December 2012, as its lyrics talked about living fast and dying young, which was insensitive at the time. This impacted the song's longevity, and the album suffered as a result. The follow-up singles Come On and Crazy Kids didn't do much on the charts, and the album itself peaked at number 6 on the Billboard 200, selling 86,000 copies in its first week, a big drop compared to Animal, which debuted at number 1. Behind the scenes, Kesha was not happy with the direction of the album, as her producer Dr. Luke pushed her towards the same party pop sound, while she wanted to experiment with rock influences. Ultimately, Warrior failed to live up to the hype, and Kesha's career took a major hit. It wouldn't be until years later, after a legal battle with Dr. Luke, that she would successfully rebrand herself with Rainbow in 2017. Endlessly by Duffy. Duffy's Rock Fairy in 2008 was an undeniable success, earning her comparisons to Amy Winehouse and Adele while producing the global hit Mercy. The album sold over 7 million copies, won a Grammy, and established Duffy as one of the UK's most promising new stars. Naturally, expectations were high for her sophomore album Endlessly, released in 2010. However, the album failed to capture the magic of her debut. Instead of sticking to the retro sound that made her famous, Endlessly leaned into more polished pop. The lead single Well 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 featuring The Roots failed to gain traction, not even charting on the Hot 100, and peaking at number 41 on the UK singles chart. Without a strong hit single, Endlessly struggled to sell, peaking at number 9 in the UK and number 75 in the US, a massive drop from the multi-platinum success of Rock Fairy. The commercial failure of the album had long-term consequences for Duffy's career. Following the album's flop, she disappeared from the music industry, later revealing in 2020 that she had stepped away because of personal trauma. While Endlessly was a complete disaster, it was a sharp decline from her debut, and unfortunately, it is still her final album to date. True to Self by Bryson Tiller. After the success of his debut album Trap Soul, Bryson Tiller was one of the hottest names in R&B. His moody sound, blending trap beats with R&B, gave a name to a new genre and earned him a devoted fanbase. Singles like Don't and Exchange became defining songs of the mid-2010s. The hype for his second album, True to Self, was through the roof, with many expecting it to cement him as one of the new faces of R&B. Instead, it turned into a disappointment. One of the biggest issues from the album was its lack of standout moments. Where Trap Soul felt fresh and innovative, True to Self came off as uninspired and repetitive. It felt more like a redo of his debut rather than an evolution. Even though the album debuted at number 1 on the Billboard 200, its success was short-lived. Fans and critics were lukewarm on the project, and it quickly lost momentum, dropping in sales and streaming numbers. Unlike Trap Soul, which had a lasting impact, True to Self came and went. He later admitted in interviews that he wasn't fully confident with the album, and that it impacted his love for music. Live Life Fast by Roddy Ricch. Roddy Ricch had one of the biggest breakthroughs in recent rap history with his debut album Please Excuse Me for Being Antisocial, which was released at the end of 2019. Thanks to the box going viral and spending 11 weeks on number 1, Roddy was positioned as the next big rap superstar. His melodic flow and catchy hooks made him a unique force in hip-hop, and expectations for his sophomore album Live Life Fast were sky high. Unfortunately, it became a textbook example of a sophomore slump. The biggest problem with the album is its lack of identity. While his debut album had a clear balance of introspective tracks and bangers, Live Life Fast felt directionless. The lead single Late at Night did moderately well, but it wasn't enough to carry the project. Commercially, the album debuted on number 4 on the Billboard 200, a steep drop from the huge success of his first album. Critically, it received mixed reviews, with many calling it bland and forgettable. Since then, Roddy has lost his momentum and has been trying to revive it in recent years. Which overhyped sophomore albums that flopped did I miss? Tell me in the comments below.